The chip war is getting nastier, and one of the biggest pressure points is now Nvidia itself. Washington wanted to cut China away from the latest American AI chips, but that decision has also cut Nvidia away from the market it needed most. The company is now facing a serious revenue squeeze. China was supposed to be one of Nvidia's biggest growth engines. Instead, that market is evaporating. Howard Lutnick has already said that Nvidia has not sold its latest H200 AI chips to China. That is a major signal, because these are exactly the kinds of chips Chinese companies want for advanced AI development. The demand is still there. Chinese firms still want American hardware. They still need high-performance chips for training models, building data centers, and competing in artificial intelligence. The block is coming from Washington. Export controls are stopping Nvidia from selling its most powerful chips into the Chinese market. Jensen Huang has already admitted how serious this became. Nvidia now has zero market share in China. That is an enormous reversal. Just 2 to 3 years ago, Nvidia reportedly controlled around 95% of China's advanced AI chip market. In a very short period, the company went from dominating the market to being pushed out of it. That is why Nvidia is now trying to bring this issue back to the highest level. Trump is sending a delegation to Beijing, and Nvidia is one of the companies represented. The agenda is clear. Jensen wants to convince Trump that the China market is too important to lose. If Nvidia stays blocked long enough, Chinese companies will keep filling the gap, and eventually they can take over more of the market. This also matters because Nvidia's business now relies heavily on data centers. The company is tied to the AI investment cycle, and that cycle is concentrated in a very small group of buyers. Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, and Alphabet contribute a major share of Nvidia's revenue. If these 4 companies slow their spending, over 40% of Nvidia's total revenue could disappear. That makes losing China even more dangerous because Nvidia is already exposed to a narrow group of American tech giants. That is why this policy is so risky. The United States wanted to slow China's access to advanced chips. At the same time, it removed Nvidia from the biggest future source of AI chip demand. The demand inside China is still there, and blocking the official channel has created a new problem for Washington. Smuggling has now become one of the clearest signals in the chip war. When a product is blocked from the official market and buyers are still ready to pay extreme prices, another route begins to form. That is exactly what is happening with advanced Nvidia chips. There will always be smugglers willing to take that risk because Chinese companies are still hungry for advanced AI chips. They need them for training models, running data centers, and keeping their AI systems competitive. Domestic Chinese chip makers are growing fast, but they still cannot satisfy the full level of demand. That leaves a gap, and Nvidia chips are still valuable inside that gap. One of the key examples is Nvidia's B300 AI chip. It is one of the latest high-performance accelerators from Nvidia, the kind of hardware used to power major AI models like ChatGPT and Anthropic-style systems. In China, B300 AI servers are reportedly selling for around 7 million RMB. That is more than double the list price in the United States. For smugglers, the math is very simple. If someone can spend around $550,000 and potentially make nearly $500,000 in profit, the incentive becomes enormous. This is why the underground market keeps growing. The profit margin is too attractive, and Chinese buyers are willing to pay because access matters more than price. Thailand is now under US scrutiny because a company there is suspected of smuggling billions of dollars worth of servers with advanced Nvidia chips to China. That detail matters. It shows that American chips are still reaching Chinese companies through unofficial routes, while Nvidia is losing the full legal revenue opportunity. So Washington now has to chase smuggling networks across third countries, and the longer this continues, the more space China gets to strengthen its own chip industry. That space is where Huawei becomes central to the story. Chinese chips are not yet as advanced as the best American chips, but they are cheaper, available, and already being used inside China's AI industry. Chinese companies are adapting around that reality. If they cannot get enough top Nvidia chips, they can buy more domestic chips, link them together, and push more electricity into the system. Power costs in China are very low, so this strategy becomes much easier to scale. The result is simple. China can make up part of the performance gap through volume, bigger clusters, and faster deployment. Huawei is now preparing an upgraded version of the Ascend 950 chip. This matters because Huawei is building around a different strategy. Nvidia has focused on making the strongest individual chip possible. Huawei is focusing on superclusters. The goal is to link thousands of Ascend chips together and make them work as one large computing unit. This approach already has many buyers in China. They need workable domestic alternatives because Nvidia chips are either unavailable or extremely expensive. Huawei's share of China's AI chip market is expected to rise sharply this year, with a 60% increase and revenue reaching around $12 billion. And those orders are still mostly tied to the older chip. Once the Ascend 950 upgrade is available, demand could move even higher. Even Jensen Huang is no longer treating Huawei like a small competitor. He has openly called Huawei one of the most formidable technology companies in the world.
We should also acknowledge that Huawei is one of the most formidable technology companies the world has ever seen. They deserve, although they have a lot of support, whatever support they have, they deserve all of the respect. We compete with this company. They're formidable, they're agile, they move incredibly fast. We said if the United States was not in China, China's AI industry would be set back. Absolutely has not happened. As a result, their semiconductor industry has doubled.
That warning matters because it shows the central failure of export controls. Washington expected China's AI industry to be set back. According to Jensen himself, that has not happened. China's semiconductor industry has doubled and doubled again. So the pressure is giving Chinese companies more reason to build their own stack faster. And once that domestic stack expands, the real question becomes where future AI usage will grow. The 2026 Stanford AI Index report gives a clear signal. AI consumption is shifting, and that shift is becoming very important for the chip market. The countries and companies using more AI models will also need more chips to train those models, run data centers, and support daily usage. So token consumption is not just a software metric. It points toward future demand for hardware, electricity, servers, and computing infrastructure. China's share is growing very fast. Chinese AI models increased their share of global token consumption from 5% to 32% in less than a year. This growth is not limited to China. Other countries and foreign companies are also using more Chinese AI models. At the same time, leading American models saw their share fall from 58% to 19%. That signals a major slowdown in the US AI growth engine, while China's AI ecosystem is expanding quickly. This creates a direct problem for Nvidia and for Washington. If Chinese AI models keep gaining users globally, China will need more chips, more clusters, more data centers, and more computing power. More of that demand can move toward Huawei and other domestic suppliers. That is why the chip war now connects to a bigger American problem. Washington needs global revenue, global adoption, and global demand. And this problem is no longer limited to AI hardware. The dollar system is facing its own version of this pressure. Washington needs more global demand for dollars, and it also needs more buyers for US bonds. This is why the Genius Act became so important. The idea was to promote dollar stablecoins around the world and turn them into another source of demand for US treasuries. The logic is simple. When more money flows into dollar stablecoins, stablecoin issuers need to hold more reserves. A large part of those reserves can go into US treasuries. That means stablecoins can help create more buyers for American debt and keep dollar demand alive globally. The problem is adoption. For regular people, stablecoins are not automatically better than bank transfers, digital payments, or credit cards. Most people already have ways to move money, so the main reason to use stablecoins would be rewards or yield. If users can earn interest, cashback, vouchers, or coupons, then the product becomes more attractive. Wall Street is fighting that idea because banking system does not want interest-bearing stablecoins pulling deposits out of banks. Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan has warned that up to $6 trillion in bank deposits could move into stablecoins under certain regulatory outcomes. That would severely restrict banks' ability to lend. That is why Wall Street is trying to influence the Clarity Act and limit stablecoin issuers from offering rewards. This creates a direct problem. Users may not earn interest, and they may not even receive cashback, vouchers, or coupons. Without those incentives, stablecoins become much less attractive. There is also a geopolitical risk. If people in another country hold dollar stablecoins and Washington imposes sanctions, they could lose access to their money. China's digital yuan has a different structure because it exists inside the official banking system. China can potentially offer interest on its digital currency to boost adoption. The rollout is still local, and if China connects the digital yuan with its payment rails, the challenge becomes much more serious. Imagine someone in Brazil, Russia, or Uganda saving in Chinese RMB and earning yield. America wants stablecoins to defend dollar dominance, while its own banking system may weaken that plan before it goes global. And while Washington tries to control chips and digital money, its allies still need cheap energy and raw materials to survive. Japan is one of the clearest examples. The Iran war has hammered its economy and put direct pressure on its industrial base. Japan is a major manufacturing economy, so it needs affordable energy, steel, aluminum, and other inputs to keep factories competitive. Aluminum is now a serious problem. Global prices have increased, and premiums for shipping aluminum to Japan have reportedly jumped by 80%. Geography makes this worse because Japan is far from many major producers. During the disruption, companies are repricing cargoes higher to protect margins. This hits Japan's auto industry directly. Automakers need metals, energy, and stable supply chains. If costs keep rising, Japanese cars become more expensive to produce, making it harder to compete globally. China is also buying aluminum and other metals aggressively to build stockpiles, tightening global supply even more. That is why Japanese companies are turning toward Russia for resources and energy. Rusal is not part of the US sanctions list, so it remains available as a source of aluminum. Still, any G7 company dealing with Russian resources risks political pressure from Washington. Japan's Idemitsu has already purchased a major shipment of oil from Russia's Sakhalin project. The cargo is not subject to sanctions, but it shows that the world cannot fully decouple from Russian energy. Korea is moving in the same direction. It has resumed buying Russian naphtha, and LG Chem imported more than 20,000 tons of it. Russia also sells energy outside the dollar, so some of these flows may be settled in Chinese RMB or Russian rubles. The Hormuz disruption is benefiting BRICS more than the G7. China gains from stronger export income because it manufactures cheaply and exports deflation. Russia gains because it is a major commodity exporter, and the world still needs energy. Russian revenues have almost doubled since February. Putin is selling more oil and gas, giving Moscow more money and more time in the war against Ukraine and Europe. Russia can also build out Arctic energy fields because global shortages keep demand strong. This is the larger blowback. The more Washington weaponizes trade, chips, finance, and energy, the more its own allies look for alternatives. Japan and Korea may avoid open defiance, but their industries still need resources at competitive prices. And once countries build alternative supply chains, payment routes, and technology stacks, they rarely return to full dependence. So what do you think? Is China moving toward a future where American chips become optional? And are US allies rebuilding resource ties with Russia because they have no better choice? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like and share the video.